My name is Amy, and I'm 31 years old. I've been married to my husband, Scene, for 3 years, but we still don't have any children. We had envisioned owning a home and starting a family by now, but that dream seems to be slipping away. I've started to believe that Scene and his parents are contributing to our current situation. Despite our efforts to save money together, our savings haven't grown much. Scene often buys expensive branded gifts for his parents, and this habit has been a strain on our finances. Before we married, I knew Scene had a tradition of giving gifts to his parents, which I initially saw as a sign of respect. However, my perspective has shifted since we've been married. While his filial piety is admirable, his tendency to spend money recklessly has become more apparent. He seems to view our increased income as a green light for more extravagant spending. Where he used to stick to a budget, he now chooses only luxury items, and his parents have come to expect these costly gifts. They even request them for no particular reason, which I find difficult to understand. Scene has been secretly giving gifts to his parents, and discovering this has only fueled my growing resentment. While he shows unwavering dedication to his parents, he remains indifferent to mine. When I bring up my mother's upcoming birthday, his nonchalant response only adds to my frustration. The stark contrast between the gifts he lavishes on his parents and the modest ones I can afford for mine bothers me deeply. I sometimes wish I could give my parents expensive gifts, but our finances are stretched thin due to his spending. As a result, the gifts I manage to give them are always a compromise, falling short of what I'd like to offer. Although my parents appreciate what they receive, it pains me that I can't fully celebrate their special occasions. My dissatisfaction with Scene's one-sided concern for his parents is becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. After a year of marriage, as I watched our savings stagnate, I began addressing Scene's spending habits. However, each time we discussed it, the conversation ended in his anger. He would accuse me of lacking sympathy for his parents or even of disliking them without truly hearing my concerns. Despite my repeated attempts to communicate, he never genuinely listened or showed any willingness to change. A few months ago, Scene bought his mother an expensive new wallet. When I confronted him about it, he defended the purchase by claiming her old wallet was worn out. But I knew the old wallet was one he had given her just a year earlier, and it didn't look worn to me. Realizing that my words weren't getting through to him, I decided to approach his parents directly. Considering our future, I felt it was crucial to address the issue directly with Scene's parents. With Scene present, I began by showing them the balance of our joint account. I pointed out how little our savings had grown since we got married, despite both of us working. As you can see, I said, we've hardly increased our savings since we began, even though we both contribute to the household income. My in-laws examined the bank statement with unreadable expressions while Scene appeared visibly displeased. Undeterred, I turned to him and asked Scene, "Do you remember the promise we made when we got married? We agreed to save money to build the house and start a family, right?" He seemed to have a moment of realization and nodded, looking guilty. To get to the bottom of the issue, I pressed Scene further. "Then why aren't you cooperating? Are you saying you don't want to build a house or have children?" He shook his head vigorously, clearly disagreeing with that notion. Just as I was about to continue, my mother-in-law interrupted. "Oh, so we're talking about building a house now. That sounds wonderful. I'd like our room to be in a sunny spot." My father-in-law quickly added, "Yes, we definitely need more space for our things. 2 rooms would be ideal." I was taken aback by this unexpected response. Seizing the moment, Scene became enthusiastic about the idea. "All right, then let's make it 2 rooms. One for visits and another for storing clothes and belongings." Annoyed by their enthusiasm, I cut in, "If we're adding 2 more rooms, that will increase our costs significantly. Therefore, we'll need to avoid any expensive gifts until the loan is paid off." My mother-in-law quickly backpedaled. "Oh, it was just a joke. We rarely stay over at Scene's place anyway, right?" My father-in-law chimed in, "Exactly." Maintaining the smile, I firmly reiterated a decision I had made previously. "I see it was a joke. However, for the sake of our future household and children, we'll need to limit gifts to birthdays and anniversaries only." Scene immediately protested, "That's not fair to Mom and Dad." I had anticipated his reaction and responded with a look of disdain. "Then your pocket money will be entirely cut off. We can't find any other way to tighten our budget. Or are you planning to use the money you saved when you were single to cover your parents' gifts? If that's the case, I won't interfere." Scene fell silent, his face sour. I let out a soft sigh, and with a bright smile directed at my in-laws who were searching for a response, said, "I appreciate your understanding, as saving requires the effort of the entire family." They responded with reluctant nods, their faces still grim. It was clear that none of them, including Scene, were fully convinced, but I firmly closed the conversation, leaving no room for further discussion. After that discussion, Scene stopped giving extravagant gifts to his parents, and I noticed our joint bank account balance steadily increasing. I felt a sense of relief as our finances began to improve. However, this tranquility was short-lived. The turning point came when my sister gave birth. Being only a year younger, my sister and I have always been very close. Although our contact lessened after marriage, we still made an effort to keep in touch at least once a week. When she had the baby, she sent me a photo along with news of her joy and excitement. Perhaps I am biased because it's my niece, but the baby was truly adorable. I couldn't contain my excitement and immediately showed Scene the photo of the baby. His eyes softened as he was charmed by the baby's cuteness. I felt a wave of relief at his reaction. Although he had always said he liked children, I had my doubts about whether he truly meant it. I worried that his reluctance to save money was due to a lack of interest in having children. But from his reaction, it seemed he would cherish our future children as well. Feeling reassured, I remembered something and said to Scene, who was still admiring the photo, "I've already sent my sister a gift and some money for the baby." His expression immediately darkened, and he glared at me with clear dissatisfaction. "You restrict gifts to my parents but spend so much on your sister," he said, clearly upset. As I stood there in shock, he continued to complain, "And you sent it without discussing it with me." His self-righteousness made me lose my temper, and I responded sharply, "How can you say that when you always secretly give gifts to your parents? This is for a baby's celebration, not for no reason at all. If you can't accept that, then let's agree to stop giving gifts entirely." I worried that I had overstepped, but the words were out, and I couldn't backtrack. Perhaps the idea of being forbidden from giving gifts was too much for him to accept, but he didn't argue further and fell silent. His face remained displeased, but I took it as a sign that he had reluctantly agreed. A few days after our argument, I received a call from my mother-in-law. As soon as I answered, she started with, "I heard your sister had a baby." Realizing my husband had shared this news, I confirmed, "Yes, that's right." I expected her to offer congratulations or chat about the baby, but instead, she asked, "So, I heard you gave her a present. Is that true?" Taken aback by her directness, I replied, "Yes, I sent something for the baby." To my surprise, she responded cheerfully, "Well, I hope you'll have something for our anniversary next week too. I'm looking forward to it." Her request felt a bit impolite, but it was better than having Scene make an expensive purchase on his own. I agreed and ended the call. For my in-laws' anniversary, I decided to send a practical pair of glasses. I braced myself for a complaint, but none came, and time went by without incident. I had been too quick to judge my in-laws, but recent events made me realize my mistake. One day, my mother-in-law visited our home with a brand new luxury bag, beaming with delight. She admired the bag and thanked me, saying, "Thank you for the $4,000 bag." I was stunned, believing that our anniversary gift was merely a pair of glasses. I complained to Scene, "I feel awful about this." My shock left me barely able to whisper, but I chose not to address it with her at the time. She seemed oblivious to my reaction and cheerfully mentioned she was heading out to lunch with friends. After she left, I rushed to the bank. We had 3 accounts, individual accounts from before our marriage and a joint account we opened after tying the knot. The joint account showed no significant withdrawals, but checking our personal accounts revealed that $800 had been withdrawn from Scene's account and $4,000 from mine. When my husband came home, I confronted him about the missing money, but he dismissed my concerns. I thought it would be unfilial to give just glasses for the anniversary, so I used my account to cover Dad and yours to cover Mom, he explained. Seeing my anger, he grew flustered and insisted it wasn't a big deal since he hadn't touched the joint account. As I remained silent, his frustration mounted. "Why would you only get glasses for the anniversary? I went out of my way to make sure both of them were covered," he argued. Realizing the conversation was going nowhere, I grabbed the carry bag I had packed earlier and quickly left the house. I could hear him shouting behind me, but I ignored it and walked away. When I arrived at my parents' house, they greeted me at the door, clearly surprised by my sudden return. My intention to divorce left them even more shocked, as I hadn't mentioned anything about it before. It must have come as a surprise. I explained the deep differences in values and thinking between my husband, his parents, and myself, detailing the recent incident with the luxury bag. I shared how my fear of my assets being misused led me to decide on divorce. My parents listened, understood, and supported my decision. Since I had already prepared for the divorce, filing the petition and arranging for a lawyer was straightforward. Once I confirmed that the affidavit had likely reached him, my husband began trying to contact me repeatedly. His voicemails filled up with messages, which I initially listened to. However, as his messages grew increasingly angry, I stopped listening and chose not to respond. The divorce proceedings with my husband went much smoother than I had anticipated, thanks to my thorough preparations. Since we worked in different departments of the same company, news of our divorce spread quickly. Although he attempted to claim that I left of my own accord, his lies were quickly disproven. I had already informed my boss and colleagues about my intention to divorce, along with the reasons and the issues with my husband and his family. Despite any false information he might have spread, my boss and colleagues, who knew the real story, promptly refuted it. My husband only made things worse for himself by propagating falsehoods. He faced cold stares from colleagues and was pressured by his boss to resolve the matter quickly. Given his naturally timid nature, it seemed he couldn't handle the pressure. Under increasing pressure, he agreed to the divorce. Unable to handle the hostile environment at work, he resigned and moved back in with his parents. However, things didn't improve there. Rumors about him and his parents had spread beyond the office, reaching our relatives as well, thanks to a family member who worked at the company. The reception was icy. Returning to his parents' home only further damaged his reputation. The neighborhood viewed him as someone who had been abandoned by his wife, and his parents, known for flaunting their luxury and looking down on others, only worsened the situation. Although the exact source of the leaks was unclear, the rumors circulated quickly. Facing disapproval and cold stares from those around them, my ex-husband and his parents lost their former arrogance and became notably subdued. Their once beloved collection of luxury goods came to an end when my ex-husband lost his income, forcing them to sell off their possessions. A relative who used to work with us informed me that the relationship between my ex-husband and his parents had become frosty, filled with mutual blame. I felt indifferent to this news. They had become irrelevant to me after our separation. I've been living stress-free and enjoying each day. The steady increase in my bank account, now that I'm no longer burdened with saving, brings me great joy. My enthusiasm for work has returned. Previously, my earnings were drained by gifts for my in-laws, which was disheartening. But that's no longer an issue. I've also been able to give my parents the gifts I truly wanted to, something I couldn't afford before. They initially said that what they had received was enough, but once I explained it was for my personal satisfaction, they happily accepted. Seeing their reaction lifted the guilt I had felt. As for love, I plan to take a break, but if the opportunity for remarriage arises, I hope to apply the lessons I've learned from these experiences.